Hey guys, it's Biggs. Now, we talked about a little bit in my last live feed, and I kind of alluded to something that was going on, and something that's been going on for a while. And I thought, hey, you guys probably want to know about this, something that's a little bit different. It's very much out there from the norm, but I asked the people that were in my live feed, and you guys said, yeah, sure, Biggs, show us. Bring us into the other side of your world. So today, that's where I'm going to take you. I'm going to take you way over the opposite side of where we normally are. It's not about fish. It's not about plants. It's not about nature. It's not about absolutely anything that you've ever seen from me before. Now, guests that dear friends that have stayed with us, or guests that I've brought in for speakers, they know what I refer to as the room of sadness. And I alluded to it in that live feed. And today, I'm going to show you the room of sadness. Now, the room of sadness is right behind this door. The fish room's way over there. Come down the stairs. That's where the fish room is. And then in this giant space that's here, this giant blue wall, which you guys have seen, this is a 12-foot space. You can see the fish room just a little bit in the corner there. This is a 12-foot room that's a common with the stairs that go upstairs. And this 12-foot blue wall eventually is going to go away to make room for the new 12-foot aquarium. But it's backed by this room right here. And this is kind of a weird little utility room. It became a storage room. But then it eventually became the room of sadness. Now, the room of sadness, it's not really a sad thing. It's a it's a part of my childhood. I've done a lot of different things in my life, but I was born in 1970, and in 1977, something pretty amazing happened in my life that has stayed with me to this day. And my kids, I got 4 wonderful daughters. They don't really understand it because everything in their life is available. If you watch a show, it's available right away. You don't have to rent it. You download it, all these things. Well, back in 1977, you couldn't do that. And that thing that I'm talking about is Star Wars. So I'm going to take you into the room of sadness. It's not sad at all. It's meant to be fun. But we always joke about it because I don't fully understand the room of sadness. I don't know how it started. I don't know how it became. I just knew it grew and it grew and it grew. And let's go take a look and you'll understand. So behind this door is an area of, I don't know, people think some nerds will say it's pretty darn cool. Some people that don't appreciate it will say it's just a bunch of stupid toys. And maybe very well it is. I don't have any sons to hand this down to. I got 4 daughters, and they don't think Star Wars is the coolest movie ever. They're wrong, but that's okay. But it all started in 1977 when the very first movie came out. And these, honestly, from fires at the home and things like that, these are literally the only things that I have, other than memories, from my childhood. These are some of the very original figures that came out with the different movies and stuff. So there's the original Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and this is a Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi, the 3rd movie. Boy, that sounds totally nerdy now, doesn't it? The original Sand Trooper, the original Chewbacca, original C-3PO, an older one that's even faded. And then when the first movie still had all the Cantina aliens, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the 4 ones. You know, none of these had any really much articulation whatsoever. They bent at the waist. That was about it. Some of them were kind of cool. Like back in the day, you used to have to save box tops or proof of purchases, and you could mail them away, and that's how you got Boba Fett. That was the only way you could get him. He was never ever for sale. Now there is a really strong collectible one that has a rocket firing backpack, but I wasn't quick to the gun to get one of those. That one's extremely apparently pretty rare and worth stuff. And same with Bosk. Bosk came out in I think it was the 2nd movie, Empire Strikes Back, when they had all the bounty hunters, and you could never buy Bosk. He had to be done by doing the proof of purchases. So having some of those still to this day is pretty cool. These guys survived somehow because they were kept in a metal tackle box somewhere downstairs in a storage room. And they survived fires that were upstairs, and they survived flooding that was in the basement because the tackle box didn't have enough weight on it that it floated. And that is literally the only thing I have left from my childhood. Now, that's what started it all. And then one day, my wife was away, and she went to visit, I think she went back home to Regina, Saskatchewan, to visit her family, which is the next province over. And this is years ago. This is, when we were back in our old place. And for some reason, my other two daughters and I started watching a bunch of the movies that were a little bit older for the youngest one to totally appreciate. And we ended up watching all the Star Wars, and we watched all the Lord of the Rings and all the Harry Potters that we had at the time and all those sorts of things. But the Star Wars one at the time when they were younger really kind of rang true with them, and they really enjoyed it. And then out of the blue, we ended up at a comic store. Now, I was never really a collector of comics. I did buy certain amounts of comics and such, but what I used the comics for was mainly for artwork and stuff. And I do have a couple of boxes of comic books up in the mezzanine in the garage, and I use them for doing artwork and drawing. I used to do a bunch of that, and then customizing, which we'll get to in a minute. But something happened that day, and I saw these Star Wars figures instead of these very plain Jane, not much to them, nothing exciting about them. I saw these ones that were extremely detailed, and every joint on them could move. And then somehow, I'd never done it before, I'd never really been a modeler, but it kind of came about the idea of starting to build the scenes. Now, we've been in this new house for this will be our 5th year or 6th year, and I haven't done anything in this room other than about a month ago I started cleaning this room up to be able to do the video for you, just to dust everything. You can imagine how much fun it is dusting this amount of stuff. And that's really all I've done in here since. Prior to that, when my wife went away at one point in time after we moved in, I'd unpacked this because it was like 12 or 15 of these giant yellow totes that you see down here. And those are still all full of diorama building supplies. So I ended up breaking down all the different dioramas. So say this shelf here or this shelf here, this would have been made, and then this would have been all covered with sand and shelters. And this is a different type of homemade type of shelter and stuff like that. And they were all things that were kind of themed out of the movie. And I did have one that was the full cantina. Now there's all the characters from the cantina, but and a lot of them are ones that I've made. And I did have one for Jabba's palace, but the problem being as it grew and grew, the collection got bigger. But also this room here that I had I could only fit, this is basically the amount of space that I have to fit everything in this room. So I do have these 2 shelves over here. I could hang the Falcon somewhere if I wanted to, and I could use these shelves and build nice big scenes, and I might very well do that when time permits or the passion ignites again and do something for it. But right now I'm fine with them just all being there and being displayed. Now, I also then started, as I say, customizing or building figures that didn't exist. And it really started with these 2 scenes particularly. Now for me, Star Wars, the very first movie, A New Hope, when it came out, that first scene in the cantina, that is what totally grabbed me as a 7-year-old kid. I was absolutely blown away. And what people can't relate to, unless you're of that same sort of age, is you couldn't rent this movie. You couldn't watch it on a DVD. There was no DVD. You couldn't even rent it and watch it on a VHS tape, which there wasn't even at that time. You went and saw it at the movie theater, or you didn't see it at all. And I ended up seeing it at the drive-in with my parents in a station wagon with the entire family. That's 6 of us, including the dog. And I sat in the far back of the station wagon watching Star Wars, the very first one, at the drive-in. And then shortly thereafter, a lot of the figures started becoming available. But I still remember the scene from the cantina, the bar scene, and that's the one that took me totally by storm. Now, there's a lot of different figures in here that may not belong to the bar scene that were created, but I've added them in because they just kind of add ambiance or whatever. This guy here is somebody that I would have customized and made. This guy here I would have customized and made. The other guy here I would have customized and made. This guy here. So there's several of them in these different scenes that are there. And then I also have over here this giant cabinet that is full of all figures that I've built. Boy, this is why you guys will get it, as I refer to it as the Room of Sadness, because I really don't understand how this came about. I don't understand how it started. I don't understand why I ended up buying a few figures. And the thing that's even funnier about this cabinet is I don't even know anything about most of these figures. I just started looking online and finding figures that I liked aliens, and I liked the bad guys, the Sith, the always were the red lightsabers and such and whatnot. And I like stuff that was a little bit different. Now, granted, a lot of these characters came from what they call as the expanded universe. The expanded universe was all the different books that were written by numerous authors, but they all had to fall. George Lucas gave them permission to write these different stories as long as they all fell within the timeline of Star Wars. So each one of those books that's written all falls into it, and they call that the expanded universe. So these guys here are from the Old Republic. I think that's a video game. This was one of the Sith masters, and I don't know who he taught. He taught somebody. I just like some of the ones that are kind of cool and different. This one doesn't exist at all. It's just I just like the head sculpt that I was able to buy. This one was actually the body of a Men in Black figure and a head from something else and whatever, and I just created something out of it. Some are from the TV show, The Clone Wars. Some are figures. This one should belong in the Cantina scene. This one should belong in the Cantina scene. This is some sort of little trolley guy that I made. He was actually with a group of pirates up here that I made for a contest, and I won some sort of contest. I made it basically a kind of a pirate bike gang kind of thing. And that's where it's been. So I enjoy the customizing. Haven't done anything in a long time since. I have made different things for other people. This Batman's themed Joker skull. I made a much larger version for a dear friend of mine, Matt, who's a hardcore Batman guy. As much as I'm into Star Wars, he's very much into Batman, and I made a big version of that for him as a gift, and that was kind of the trial to see if I kind of liked it, how it was working out and stuff like that. So it took the themes of many of the different Jokers from many of the different movies, and it was just something fun to do. The rest are just kind of collectibles and stuff that are in here. That's a true wearable New Hope inspired wearable collectible helmet. I've worn it at Halloween with the kids. The Boba Fett helmet is actually, I can't remember the name of the company, but is actually autographed by Jeremy Bulloch, which was the actor that portrayed Boba Fett. He has since passed away. Judge Dredd, I liked him. I like Lobo. I like the Predator and the Alien movies and stuff like that. Everybody who can't not like Deadpool. And I know everybody hated this guy, but that was my favorite portrayal of the Joker out of all the movies. And then one of my favorite aliens is Grievous. He's missing one of his side things on his helmet. It's down there. We dropped him when we were cleaning the other day. And there's an R2 up in the corner. He's about 1.5 feet tall. He actually he plays games, and the girls, each one of them when they were younger, they like playing him. He's all yellowed because years ago he used to stand at the base of the stairs in the basement, and I think one of the light bulbs burnt out, and I think I replaced it with like a reptile light bulb. So the white plastic on him got damaged by the UV rays of the reptile light bulb. Now this is kind of, there's a Wally, and then this is the original Rancor from the original movie. And that was the original toy from back in Revenge of the Jedi. And then since he's been reimagined a bunch of times, much cooler looking, much more articulation, much more crazy looking. And then he was also redone another way for one, I think it was a video game. Some of these characters, I don't really know who they are. I know it sounds like it's not believable, Biggs, you're such a huge nerd, but I really don't. I'm not a video game player. I don't have time. I really haven't played a lot of video games ever. Some of these are just random things I get from different people. Now, when you have a hobby or a passion or something like this and you start collecting stuff, people start helping you. And help is not necessarily a good thing. And what I mean by that is what people have helped me with is I don't usually go outside of what I call the standard old school size. These are all 3 3/4 inch figures. To me, I do not need more addictions. I do not need more things to collect. I just don't. So what's happened as of late, and the better part of all the newer 3 or 4 or 5 movies now that have come out, they haven't released a lot of figures that would be in what we call the vintage series with all the different articulation. These most of the newer figures are like what they call 5-point articulation. They bend at the waist. They bend at each arm moves like the old school ones. And here's some of the perfect examples of them, the ones that came out from the Rebel movies. Basically, the legs move independently, the neck turns, and each shoulder moves. Other than that, that's as far as they go. Now, for building a diorama or a display, you can't pose those figures whatsoever. Versus the other ones that are all super articulated, like here's all my Jedi warriors, if you can call it, all my good guys. I might have some in the wrong spots. I don't really know. It's just they all look like they kind of belong there. And then all my bad guys. And some are really cool. Like this guy here is really cool, but I don't even know who he is. I know he comes from one of the video games, and I think he fights this guy here. I don't really know. But I just have some fun with it. Now, but with people helping me is dear friends of mine, Spencer, Jack, and Jen. They got me, this was on top of my birthday cake one year. It's a full Lego thing, and it moves, and it does all sorts of super cool stuff. Okay, that's pretty cool because that was a gift. And then the Disney store started selling every week or every month or something like that. One, it started with the Force Awakens, the first new one. They started releasing these new figures, which were all die-cast metal and very heavily articulated, and they weren't too expensive. But they ended up having to have a lottery for them. And I was not interested in collecting most of the ones that were of what I'd call humans. I like the aliens and the weird-looking ones, as you guys have seen. I love all the different creatures and stuff because that's what really brought me to Star Wars. There's all the Mandalorians and whatnot. And then one of my favorite shelves is all the stuff from Disney World Star Tours. I got the ship and all sorts of different things that I've brought back over the years. General Grievous, one of my favorite characters. I know people are going to say, Biggs, in the comment, what is your favorite Star Wars figure? Easily, hands down, without question, it would be that little green guy there. There's my original little Yoda from when I was a little kid. I don't know if that was one you could buy or you had to mail away. But without a doubt, Yoda is the one. And you guys will notice it because I have it tattooed on the side of my neck. So he's definitely my favorite character. One of my top favorite characters after that would have to be General Grievous, though. I just think the imagination that went into create that guy, I think, was really, really cool. Now, here's some unique collectible ones. These were not figures that were ever released. Some might view them as in bad taste, but that's Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru after they were killed by the stormtroopers and burnt alive. So somebody online, one of the customizers, made these little card backs and made the figures and stuff. I just think they were kind of a neat addition. This one's pretty cool. This comes in a little commemorative tin set. And what this is this is the entire Frigger and Dan and the modal nodes. This is the actual band from the Cantina. Now, I do have one of the members of the band of the Cantina actually in the scene, I believe. And he's right here. And I actually have the stand for him. And the stand for him actually has a button on it you can play, and it plays the music. So that's kind of cool. But now that I have the entire band, when we go and do build that scene, we'll be able to put the whole band together in one spot. Another really cool super collectible one to this is this one here. And this is George Lucas as a stormtrooper. And I don't remember how you got this one. I know it wasn't actually for sale. I know you had to, it was either like a San Diego Comic-Con special thing or something, but I got it from my pusher, my peddler, the guy that helps me find stuff all the time over at the comic shop and stuff. So I got all sorts of cool little knickknacks and cool little things here. I got some different droids back there. R2 Boo from Star Wars Disneyland, and I got R4M4 for May the 4th be with you. All sorts of cool little things. So the next phase is out there we have a big movie screen and a DLP projector. And I like the idea of being able to build a couple of my favorite characters. Now, originally I was going to build a stormtrooper and have him stand beside the movie screen, but probably my absolute favorite character that started the whole thing. Now, Yoda's probably my absolute favorite. This one would be second or third. This is one of my top favorites, was the Tusken Warriors. This is an original. They call it a Godzilla kit. It is an exact duplicate. It was actually made, the shape, everything is measured and made from the original ones that were screen used in A New Hope. It's a long process to build this one. It's got a helmet inside, and then I've manufactured the air breather and the sash, and this is an actual Swedish Mauser. This is an official one, an actual one from World War I, and then this is a duplication. And no Tusken Raider would be complete without their weapon, so we're starting to build their weapon there. It's not quite finished, but it's coming together. I like the idea. It's fully wearable. It will be 501st approved, but it's not really the intention of it. It's just something I like the idea of it being able to stand in the corner in the basement when you come down to be greeted. So there's the customized station. You can see certain ones from a few years back. I'm making the Tonica sisters, which were never made. Random creatures of parts and different droids and whatnots and all the different stuff. Now, granted, a lot of my paints and stuff will probably be dried out by now. And then these are all just different accessories and things to be able to customize. And different heads and whatnot, and hands, and lightsabers and whatnots, and different weapons and guns and everything. And then all these drawers are all the same thing. It's all little parts for customizing and building. I buy packages in bulk whenever I find them. People find them at garage sales for me. I used to scour eBay a lot, but honestly, I haven't done that in years because I just have so much bulk parts of things to work with that I just really do not need anything more at this time until I start going through these and building some different themes. Even my mother-in-law has been involved in helping me, because I have no idea how to sew, so she's been sewing me different Jedi robes. There's that cantina thing. That's kind of cool. Apparently it's going to play the whole thing. So there's many other aspects of, pop culture and stuff. Ren and Stimpy find a place. Little different treasures and collectibles and stuff like that. Weird little botanical seeds that I find in different tropical areas and I bring back. Weird collectible figures. Little skull of a little mammal I found at the beach. Little random treasures. My magic 8 ball, very, very important for casting important decisions. Random stuff. It's a nice, fun place to sit down here when you got time to relax, but we got a farm now, and the farm commands a lot more time. There's the big Falcon. Now, I did, as a kid, have one of the original TIE fighters, and I did have an original X-Wing, which I do not anymore. And I did have the original Millennium Falcon, and it was missing a lot of parts. And I did have the Death Star, which was the absolute Cadillac to have back then. And I just absolutely loved those toys growing up. I was very, very lucky, very, very fortunate kid. But they just weren't as cool as these super detailed. Like the original Millennium Falcon was like a third this size. And these ones here, these new ones, make all these sounds and they shoot things and everything. This was the biggest, most detailed one. They did make a giant one that was 5 or 6 feet. That was for Toys R Us for their displays, and each store got one for display, and they've all ended up in collectors' hands and stuff like that now. But they're not, I don't believe they're all fully detailed on the inside or not, but I don't know what you'd do with one if it was 5 or 6 feet long. Little remote controlled BB-8. He's controlled by a little app on your phone. The Birth of Vader. And all these 6-inch figures, they're not really my thing, but sometimes you see them at Winners, which would be like TJ Maxx in the States, and they're often really, really cheap. So sometimes they're worth it, but I'm not really collecting anything at all right now. And if you really want to have an impact as to how big Star Wars has been in my life, my wife, Dana, used Darth Vader's theme music to come out during our wedding. That was her wedding music, was Darth Vader's music. This was one of these, they used to have all these different types of contests running and stuff onto these different forums and everything like that for nerds like me. And this was a scene that I made for some zombie apocalypse Star Wars theme thing. Now there was one book, I don't have it, I don't think I've even read it, but there was one book about a zombie or virus outbreak on one of the Star Wars ships and stuff like that. And that all the stormtroopers turned into zombies and everything like that. And it was a big deal, like basically like The Walking Dead, but in space. Now, I created this one here. I had a different bunch of zombie heads. The Jedi and this zombie. He's got a zombie head and he's killing that one. And this one here is barely, his entrails are hanging out. He's still dragging himself along. There's a head, a severed head inside that one there, because that's the only way you can kill them. You can see all the different damage and the entrails hanging out of them and everything like that. But it was just something for fun. This guy's got like a ligament or whatever it is hanging out of his leg. Just something for fun. But when you think about it, if you're going to be using, and I'm not a scientist for lightsaber technology, but it looks like it's some sort of plasma thing. And if that's going to bore a hole into you, it's probably going to cauterize the wound. How often do you see blood in Star Wars? Not very often. If they're going to shoot you with a blaster, it's going to burn through and leave a hole, and it's going to burn the hole through, right? So you don't see a lot of blood in Star Wars. And maybe that's a theory. So maybe this whole scene kind of falls apart. I don't know. But it was still kind of cool and still kind of fun to make. Okay. Well, I told you guys, I was going to take you down the rabbit hole into the room of sadness. It's not sad. It's my childhood. And I love it. I wish I had more time to spend down here. But spending about a month dusting this to be able to do this video for you guys kind of brought a lot of those memories back. So in one way, I'm going to thank you guys not only for watching, but thank you for giving me back that wonderful feeling of being around with this sort of stuff again. So, thank you for watching, guys. And as always, may the Force be with you.